Hello and welcome to episode number 28 of the Apostate Alliance here on The Rage. My thanks to The Rage for opening us up there with that starting soon screen. Since I'm such a unsavvy tech person, he does that for me. So today we're joined by an ex-Muslim named Farah and, of course, my co-host, Faye. We've all decided that we have some issues today, so we're all going with the avatars. I'm not, I just got my new stand-up desk and using it for the first time, and it's got the computer kind of sitting down from me, so if I'm on camera, you can see all 17 of my chins, and I'm going to see what I can do to raise my computer up a little more at a later date. To open the show up, Faye has something she wants to talk about because I dropped the ball and didn't find any stories to talk about today. But go ahead, Faye.
Hi, welcome to the show, everybody. There hasn't been a whole lot going on at the moment anyway. But
no, that was me. I'm sorry.
Okay?
No, okay. I had audio coming through. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. But exMNA did their Awesome Without Allah thing, and that's a notable thing that happened. But honestly, it's been quite quiet lately.
And then what exactly is the Awesome Without Allah?
So it's a hashtag that the ex-Muslims of North America had started last year, where I participated, and this year I participated as well, but they had asked specifically for my video. So I hadn't posted it. They had with the wrong handle. So I didn't even know it came up until like someone had messaged it to me.
And then so that's something that's an ongoing thing, or is it like every once a year type thing with like Blasphemy Day or?
Yeah, it's sort of an annual hashtag where they'll get some ex-Muslim personalities to talk about why they're awesome without Allah.
How about you, Farah? Are you awesome without Allah?
Yeah, actually, a heck of a lot better, I'd say.
So, as we've done many times before, when it's someone Faye knows, I'm going to let Faye handle the interview. I'm going to put myself backstage and interact with you folks in the chat. If you have any questions for our guest, Farah, please tag me in the chat, and we will ask all the questions at the end. And if you have a question for Faye or myself, please tag me in the chat. So I'm going to let Faye and Farah take it away, and we'll be back a little later. If I can figure out how to get out here.
All right. Welcome, Farah. How are you?
Hey, Good. I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous.
Yeah, I had recommended we interview you to John, and I was unsure if you wanted to come on because I didn't know how like into the community you were. But I'm really glad to see you here, especially since we don't really get to talk a lot because of our time zones.
I know this is
Um,
true.
yeah, but tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you grow up? What were you raised on?
Well, look, I mean, oh, Islam, obviously. Well, my parents are
Yeah,
pretty, like, liberal Muslims, I would say. Um, but I don't know, that indoctrination thing really hits hard even with the liberal open Muslims. I mean, I was lucky because my mom is from Washington State. And she just happened to be well, she didn't just she converted many years ago when my parents got married. My parents are still married. They've been married for 45 plus years. I don't know how they made
right.
that work, but they did. Um, and my mom spent so many years learning Arabic and converting and everything in the Middle East. But she also always kept her really strong, like American values. Not so much like I don't mean American values in the way of like, crazy like nationalism like we have today, but I mean like one of her big rules to my dad and like having kids with him was like you are never going to force my girls to cover, which I really am so thankful for my mom doing. I was really lucky that I had that kind of like balance. Um
Yeah,
and my mom standing in the way of and in the way of some of the things that Islam would have wanted my dad to make us do.
yeah.
Uh,
So
yeah.
that's interesting though. Like she learned Arabic and I'm assuming she emigrated as well to the UAE, which
Well,
is where your father's
yeah,
from.
yeah. So she left the U.S. in the late 1970s and moved to the UAE with my dad in the late 1970s. And um, yeah, she has a really unique perspective on things because of being a white lady in the Middle East for so long and like
Yeah,
immersing herself so much in the culture and the religion and the language, um, and yet still being an outsider, uh, and
yeah.
and also being someone that was really steadfast in what she thought was right, for her and her family.
I mean, did she have friends in the UAE? Like what must have that been like?
See, another instance in which I would say, like me personally, I'm very lucky is that my Arab family has always been the kind of like in the Emirates, I would say like there's a whole range of different families, but there's like generally two kinds of families. There's like the really traditional ones,
Uh-huh.
which I have experience with through my like sister's husband and like his family were the kind of family that, like his dad had four wives and had multiple children in multiple houses and then just kind of like dropped groceries off and left them to like raise themselves. And,
Right.
didn't want to be involved with our family because we were mixed and half American. There's those kind of Emirati families. And then there's like the kind like my kind, which are really open to like other nationalities or like mixed
Mm-hmm.
marriages and stuff like that. So my family, my mom didn't really have friends out there, but she luckily had my all of my dad's sisters. And to this day, my mom has such a close relationship with my dad's sisters. And my mom also lost both of her actual biological sisters, unfortunately, to cancer.
Yeah.
So they were really like open and welcoming and stuff with her.
That's
Um,
really nice.
yeah. I grew up watching my like American grandparents fly to the UAE and sit with my like well, I didn't know my grandpa. He died before I was born, but there are pictures of like both sets of my grandparents together interacting. And my Arabic grandparents were illiterate and couldn't speak English, and obviously my American grandparents couldn't speak Arabic. But I grew up around a
The,
lot of like multiculturalism.
that sounds really, really nice. So
Yeah,
then did you grow up in the Emirates then?
yeah. I was born in Bahrain, and lived there until I was about 4, and then my parents relocated to back to Dubai.
Okay. And
And then
so all of your schooling and everything was in
yeah,
the Emirates.
yeah, and then I grew up there until I was around 17, and I'm a little bit savvy and a little bit cunning, and convinced my parents to let me go to boarding school in the UK, and I left the UK when I was 17 and lived there for 10 years and just tried to never go back.
What was the reason for that?
There were a lot of reasons, but okay, so a lot of people think of like the UAE as like this incredibly,
Bastion?
yeah, like a liberal haven in the Middle East. And
Right,
while it is that for the expatriates that live there, um, it's I would say it's really not like that if you're an Emirati there. Like
right,
the social rules that you have to abide to are really different, even for someone like me who came from a really liberal family. Um, and growing up there was just, yeah, I just never fit in there or felt happy there. And so
right.
by the time I was a teenager, I knew I had to get out.
And wow, so you just never felt like you belonged in the Emirates.
Yeah, yeah.
And what was the main reason for that?
Oh, the main reason. I don't know what the main reason is, but
Or the reasons?
I would say the top 3 things was, well, definitely one of those top 3 was the religious aspect. There was,
Right,
even with it being such like a liberal open society, there was essentially zero room for like actual questions and stuff. I mean, being an Emirati, you had to do like, so I went to a British school, high school there, right? An example of
right,
this, of like the difference in rules for people, was that like all of my white Western friends got to go do sexual health education, and I had to go do mandatory Islamic class instead. And
right,
the mandatory Islamic classes that we had there, our Islamic teachers were like, none of them ever really had this sense of like, oh, like we just want you to ask questions and share information and have like this open conversation. It was never like that. It was always like a threatening, overbearing, um
kind of study.
yeah, and like, yeah. I mean, when I was a teenager, though, I became really rebellious in those Islamic classes, particularly with one Islamic teacher, who was this Pakistani male. He ended up actually being fired because he was videotaping year sevens under their desks. Um,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So, yeah, I
Jesus.
yeah, Islamic classes were really, really not. I don't know. I don't
They
know.
sound really weird.
Yeah, it was.
Because like and that's coming from somebody who also had Islamic classes.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it
it
sounds
was
weird.
weird because it wasn't like the sort of extreme like videos that we'll see out of some countries where it's like, they had all of us girls and boys separated, and like this was in a British school in Dubai. I was one of the only Emirati kids in that school too. Um
Right.
and so like it was this mixed classroom where, like girls are uncovered or are covered, and there's boys, and like we're all just sitting there. And yet we had this like really angry Pakistani male at the front of the class, like just yelling at us, and like it got to the point with that particular teacher that me and a couple other friends just started to like can I say like rude things on here, like take
Yeah,
the
of
piss?
course.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we just started to take the piss out of him because there was
That's what you do, though.
there
That's
was
what you do when you have a teacher that's like awful. You
and
take the piss.
there was no way for like a two-way dialogue. Yeah.
Oh, I
And
see.
yeah. I mean, we used to ask him stuff like, so like how do we know that whoever wrote the Quran wasn't just some like little kid in a hut that had some like crazy dreams or something? And
I'm surprised you didn't get killed for that. Jesus.
I got sent out of the
Like,
classroom for that one. Yeah.
really?
Times, yeah. He tried to write in my diary, but I was also just a little shit and was like, no.
I couldn't do anything.
Yeah, they also can't.
Um,
The Islamic teachers there also can't do anything either because they're government mandated.
oh, I see.
And also
I see.
the expat schools there, which are usually like better in terms of like quality of education, like they don't give a shit about the quality of the Islamic education.
Yeah, of course they wouldn't, because
Yeah.
it's not relevant to anything.
So they'll just hire any old teacher and throw them in there.
But what I was gonna ask is that, did you have any fascination with religion at all, or was this just something that you felt bitter about participating in?
I was actually the best little Muslim when I was a child. I
Wait. No, you weren't.
Yeah, by choice, fully by choice.
Okay.
And you know what's crazy to me though is even when like I would say I stopped acting like or being so good and being so Islamic or so Muslim when I was
Yeah,
probably going into like around 10 years old. Um there was also a lot of conflicting things coming up as well though, like sexuality stuff
right.
around that age. So that all started to tailspin, and but even as I got older and I started to get like in my actions get way less Muslim, um and as much as I personally started to stop believing in it, I got to university age and in the UK after I'd lived there for a couple years, and I would still be so defensively angry at people that criticized it in front of me.
Right.
And it's always weird to me now that I'm even older than that and looking back at that, how like
Contradictory that is.
yeah, and how ingrained it was for me to be defensive over something that I didn't even believe in, really.
I do kind of feel the same sometimes when someone's like, because it's not just Islam, it's like the thing that you grew up on. It's like your entire culture. So
Yeah,
it like stings sometimes when you hear somebody who's never experienced it just go off on one.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's super strange to me. But yeah, I was when before the age of 10, like at the age of 7, before I had my period or anything, I was
Yeah,
willingly like fasting like an adult just because I wanted to do it, and praying with my dad and stuff just because I wanted to do it.
that's
Um
cute.
yeah, it was very cute. It was
It's in a sense it's kind of horrible, but it's also really cute.
yeah. Yeah. It was I think it was yeah, it was what you see your family doing and you kind of want to, I don't know,
Participate.
participate or join in and be as good as they are and stuff.
Yeah.
Um
And I
yeah.
feel like as a kid, you also feel like you have something to prove constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think, I mean, I'm also a really competitive person. I think when I was younger, especially because like growing up in the UAE, in the school I went to, we had like over 99 nationalities at that school alone. That's how many cultures and nationalities come and live in the UAE.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I had all these other little friends of mine as well who were also like, some of them were Muslim, or one of them was from Luxembourg, or one of them was from Canada. You know, they're all from different places. And so the non-Muslim kids are doing their thing and stuff. But then you have all your other Muslim friends. And I do remember feeling super competitive with some of my Muslim friends, like, "Oh, are you fasting today?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna fast every day." And they'd be like, "No, I brought lunch today," and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah,
like,
no, I know the feeling of like desperately wanting to show everybody up that you are the Muslim girl.
yeah, yeah,
Having grown up in the UK and everything, like I understand the urgency to bond with your Muslim friends as much as you want to bond with everybody else.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That also in itself became very conflicting as well growing up in the UAE, because I obviously look like a white girl and I sound like a white girl thanks to my mom. Um and yeah, growing up in the UAE, I noticed this a lot with the men. And
Hmm.
particularly, like, my brother had so many issues culturally growing up mixed there, because
Right.
you have one you will have one half of like Emiratis that treat you like you're like, I always compare it to in Harry Potter when Malfoy uses the term mudblood.
Right.
Yeah, they kind of treat you like that, like your blood's
Like
dirty.
a half
Because
breed.
yes, like a half breed. I actually
Wow.
my first ever physical fight with someone in school was because they were saying stuff about my white mom, and that was like a thing there, was to, if you had a white parent, was to insult like the fact that you were white. Um
Are
and
you Harry Potter?
maybe. Actually, you know what? I won a I won a Halloween competition when I was a kid once. My mom made me the best golden snitch costume. I was a big shiny
Wait.
owl.
So when you were in the Emirates,
Yeah.
was Harry Potter not like a banned thing?
No, it wasn't actually. It was like massive. But you also have to remember that the UAE is super capitalist as well.
Right, right.
Like
No, because
they
like I had to read those books quite literally in a cupboard under the stairs because it
oh,
was just not allowed.
you know what's crazy about Harry Potter
What?
is my mom loves books, and she always like encouraged us to read and stuff. So when Harry Potter came out, um my mom, I was around 7, and the first book, my mom every night used to sit with me and read me like a chapter or something. It was so sweet.
Right.
And then
Oh,
on the other hand, her one of her sisters, my aunties our American side, um she was very, very Christian, super Christian. And
right.
my mom was her younger sister, and she used to yell at my mom and like get on top of her, like, "I can't believe you're reading your children this magic, devil magic stuff." Oh,
Oh, memories.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
kind of insane.
yeah. It was, yeah, totally crazy.
Uh,
But yeah, she wouldn't let
See,
her
like
kids.
if I were to tell a similar story,
Mhm.
when I eventually got caught reading Harry Potter
Oh
under the
man.
stairs, I went to an Islamic school. My father started petitioning for the books to be removed.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was a little insane, but you growing up in an Arab country and them having like no aversion to it really says a lot, I think.
No, that costume competition I won was actually like held by a bookstore in one of the malls there. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, so it was like a public thing, and they were very like open with it. But again, like the UAE will also, like, this is a place that has like a club next to a mosque, Like
Yeah.
they will forego their, I guess, whatever the really cultural or really religious people won't. They'll forgo that as long as their main base of money, the expats, are happy.
Yeah.
So that they'll build a bar next to a mosque, like,
So it
and
is a liberal bastion,
yeah, sort of.
driven by capitalism, but it is a liberal. It is a liberal bastion, kind of.
Kind of. There's no freedom of speech or freedom of press, but
yeah. So that was your childhood, and you said that you were kind of invested as a small child in Islam.
yeah.
So what happened? Like, what was your Islamic education like? Like, what drove you to question things more? Was it just a rebellious streak?
Well, I would again say that it was I think it was more rebellious as it got later on.
Mm.
Later on in life, but I would say that earlier it was a combination of, like I said, there was a lot of sexuality stuff going on, questioning that kind of stuff, which obviously when you have like this really oppressive religion that doesn't
So
accept any of
what
that.
sexuality stuff was this?
Well, between the ages of like 12 and 14, I was in an all-girls school, but actually it started more around 10 when I started noticing that I liked girls.
Mm-hmm.
And like that I was like, yeah, just liking girls instead.
Right.
And
And they
and
sent
so
you
then,
to a girls' school.
yes, yeah, yeah. So
Wow, that
I
really didn't play in their favor.
No, and it was so my mom didn't want me to stay in that same school that I was in that had 99 nationalities. They didn't
Right.
want me to stay in that same school,
They
for
didn't want
whatever
you to
they.
taste the rainbow.
So instead, they sent me to this really crappy, uh, like it's not a government school in the UAE, but it's
Mm.
basically like a really shit like Arab school that has some like botched American curriculum. Um, an example of how awful the education is at that school is that my one of my cousins, he went into grade 4 or year 5, and he was
Yeah.
illiterate. He was completely illiterate. They had not taught
How
him
did
how
he
to
get
read
in?
properly. Well,
How
he
did
was
they?
his mom had put him in that school since he was like little. But throughout
Right.
his education there, they just didn't teach him how to read.
That
And
sucks.
yeah, that's how bad their education is. My auntie actually sued that school and won because of how awful their education is.
Oh
So
my.
yeah, they sent me to this school, which is boys and girls segregated and stuff, and uh, it was a really weird, interesting school. That's where like basically all the like shit kids get sent. I found out.
Right.
um, yeah. So all the like Arab girls and stuff that are like having abortions or like nose jobs in Lebanon or something, like they go to that school.
Jesus.
Um,
Oh my gosh.
that's the reject school.
That sounds awful. And this was all because you started fancying girls?
Oh, well, no, they didn't send me there because I started fancying girls. They sent me there for like whatever education purposes. They thought that I was going to get a better education at this school. It was
Why?
I have no idea. Zero clue. Um,
Okay.
no clue. Parents thinking that they're making good choices, that kind of thing.
Ugh,
But
parents. Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway.
And yeah, it was at that school that I started that I was like, oh shit, like, fuck, I like girls. Like, this is bad situation.
Just that dialogue.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, no, it didn't really, like, I guess I started like just following through with liking girls before actually accepting in my head that I liked girls, or that I
Right.
wasn't like, oh, a straight girl. I kept like lying to these girlfriends that I had, my female circle, that like, ooh, yes, I was dating a boy, but he didn't exist. In reality, um, I had this best friend of mine who was South African actually, and
Uh-huh.
she I guess I had a big crush on her, huge crush on her.
Right.
And we sort of, I guess she was like sort of reciprocal to it, like because we didn't really know what we were doing and we were like teenagers and stuff. And so, there was times where we were like a little bit too like cuddly or whatever. And there was this, and her family was very Muslim as well, by the way, but they didn't make her cover or anything either. But her dad was like pretty well, I didn't
No,
know. I thought he was like they were like my family until this
right.
incident happened at her house where we nearly got caught kissing. Uh
Oh no.
yeah, and basically I then was like not allowed to we weren't allowed to hang out anymore at each other's houses and stuff.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, her dad didn't tell my parents anything, but they just stopped her from seeing me. Um,
Oh.
yeah, and then a whole bunch of other stuff happened within that like friend circle I had at school. Everyone sort of like turned on me also because of that incident. Um, and she had to, well, I'm I don't I guess maybe I'm doing a bit of projecting, but they left back to South Africa at the end of that school year. Um,
Oh no.
and I kind of always felt like that had something to do with me. Um, so that was like a
Oh,
really
baby Farah was just like you just snatched away.
I was like, "Oh, my best friend, like she's gone now." Okay. And it was
Oh.
really sad because the like friends group that I had as well, like they kind of turned on me and I think they felt like it was my fault that she was gone as well. Um
Uh,
and so yeah, there ended up after that friends group fell apart. Do you ever remember a website called Pixo?
yes.
Oh my god. So
What did you do?
we all had these fucking sites, right? These Pixo sites, because it was before the social media, like bang hit.
Yeah.
And so basically, I had this stupid like I don't know, I guess it was like a chat box or like a guest book or something on there, and I started
Yeah.
getting a bunch of like death threats in there, saying that like
Oh.
I'm gonna kill you when you come to school tomorrow and stuff like that. And
Did
I
you
started
tell anybody?
no.
No, of course not.
No. Yeah. Yeah. My parents had made it really clear like from a young age that like we don't talk about emotional things. Um
Mm.
and I just stuck by that. So yeah, I didn't tell anyone. Yeah, I started getting that and I started getting just generally like really picked on by some of these older girls at school who some of that friends group that I had like told them stuff about me and that I liked girls and stuff and like
Right.
oh it was just yeah, it was really like
That's so
put me on
sad.
edge. So yeah, I got to the point where like I was failing like basically all of my classes. Um and my mom was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I was like, "I'm being bullied like fuck." And the last 3 months at that school were like hell. And my mom got like let me change schools and that's when I went to that the British high school. Um and that was
The boarding school.
oh no, this was before the boarding school.
Oh, I see.
This is the British high school in Dubai. Um where I
So
was
did
like
you ever tell anybody that this is why you were being bullied?
no. I tried to tell my mom when I was like 17, like, Mom, I'm actually, not straight. And she was like, it's just a phase. And I was like, oh, you're one of those. I was like, okay, fuck this. Like,
But did you like at this point were you aware that it was some kind of taboo, or what was the deal?
yes, I was definitely aware that it was a taboo at that point. Um, I think I was definitely aware that it was a taboo before that because like I said, I'd had some like instances when I was like even younger than that sort of showed me that that was taboo. um,
Right.
and that like yeah, you don't you don't like kiss girls in public and stuff. Yeah,
I'm guessing, would it have been as bad if they had caught you kissing their son?
I don't think so.
No?
I really don't think that that would have been like as big of a deal, to be
Oh.
honest. If it was
Well,
a
presumably she would hold it against you for kissing her brother.
oh yeah, oh god, yeah, that would be weird as well because he was like a child. Well, I mean, I was a child as well, but he was like 7 or something, so that would have definitely been fucking weird.
Anyway, I feel like we're getting away from it. So,
Yes.
um, so you realize with the whole sexuality thing that you were different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what happened? Like, did you delve into a religious thing because of that, or did you just reject it altogether because you were a way that you couldn't control?
I started to reject as I got into my teenage years, like after like 13, 14, when I'd gone to this British school. Um
Hmm.
I had an incident at that school that was like res- there was a lot of residual emotions from my last experience at that other school. Um
Yeah.
and I had an incident that nearly got me expelled within 2 weeks of joining that new school, um,
Jesus. What
because
happened?
of another case of bullying. It it was this stupid British girl, and I was the only Emirati and American in the school, and this was like a school very like heavily marketed towards like expats and Brits and stuff because all
Right.
the teachers were British or Canadian or Australian. So like they in Dubai, everyone kind of like clicks up. Like there's American schools where all the American kids and families go. There's British schools where all the British kids and families go, and stuff like that. Um,
Uh-huh.
hold on, someone asked a question.
I think we'll
Oh,
take the questions at the
okay,
end.
okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I was the only Emirati and American at the school, and I was a little bit of a weird kid and stuff, and so this girl who was younger than me started picking on me, and it was the first time I've ever ridden in a bus as well, like in a school bus, and she used to do it like blatantly in front of me.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Wow,
and
what a bitch.
yeah, yeah. Um, and basically, I ended up like sort of threatening her one day in front of everybody on the bus, and like they
Threatening her how?
pretty like violently. Like I didn't actually put my hands on her, but like, yeah. Um, I guess I told her I was like, gonna kill her or something. I'm sorry. I'm
You,
a little,
you fucking gangster.
I'm a little
What?
psycho.
You told this little girl that you were gonna kill her?
Yeah.
Oh my god. All right, anyways. Um,
Yeah.
so you got expelled for threatening the
I
life of one of your
almost
peers.
got expelled. So I came into school the next day, and my principal was like, "Yeah, you need to go to this back room." So someone's parents called us yesterday and said that you were threatening someone, and I was like, "Oh fucking hell!"
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, and yeah, you can see where my mental health issues also everything starts to converge around this point. Um,
Oh.
yeah,
You know,
and
you're just like such a poor baby, but such a badass. Like, what? Out here threatening children. Sorry, this is probably inappropriate to laugh at this, but it's so funny. Because I don't see you as that at all. Granted, I've only known you a few months, but
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah, it
so
was actually an awful time, but I'm glad that I survived it and I can laugh at it now.
yeah, of course, that's the best part of surviving experiences is laughing it off. Because if you don't, you'll cry.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So after all that happened, I basically met some new friends, ended up meeting this girl who Georgie, who's my best friend and is still my best friend to this day. And she changed my life. That school, the teachers, changed my life, changed the course of my life after these incidences and bullying and whatnot.
right.
Um,
So what
and
happened?
Oh, I just became like a much better student. Well, when I went into that school, also like they did, like a sort of aptitude test thing, to figure out what grade I should go into and stuff. And I was actually a year behind, because of
Ah,
how crap that education was at that other school. Um, so
I'm confused as to why you weren't just sent to an American school.
yeah, my mom. Oh, because the American schools, for some reason, had they had some kind of permissions to like not do Islamic classes. And my mom said that, "Oh, that's just not acceptable. You can't go to one of those
Ah,
schools." So so yeah.
all right, fair enough, fair enough. I
So
mean,
yeah.
are you glad that you went to a British school over an American school?
Yes, definitely. Um, I feel like the British curriculum in general is like a lot more streamlined. I mean, I also am very privileged in that that school gave a lot higher quality of an education than I think, like a British public school would, like actually in England.
Yeah,
So I was
probably.
fortunate, and yeah, I was fortunate in that regard. The teachers had a lot more time to spare for like pastoral care things and stuff. So like,
Yeah,
yeah, it was really substantial, like the change I went through. The
I would
After that,
imagine that things would be quite different from you. It sounds like you moved schools a lot.
yeah, sort of. Yeah, 3 schools, I think. Oh no, 4 schools. There we go, with the boarding school. Um,
What was that like?
I
Moving schools a whole bunch.
um really, I think really disruptive actually, because I until I met Georgie, that best friend I talked about, I'd never really had like a set of friends that like stayed in my life for like a very long amount of time.
Hmm.
Um so yeah, I think it was really disruptive, and also yeah, changing curriculum so much and stuff, because there's actually a lot of different education curriculums around the world, and a whole bunch of them in one city in Dubai. So like,
Wow,
yeah,
Jesus,
the yeah,
daunting.
you jump from different quality and levels of education, like in different schools. And
All
it's
right,
also, yeah.
so things start looking up for baby Farah. Uh, what happens next?
um yeah, so I go through that British school, do my GCSEs, do fairly well and stuff.
Hmm.
Um
Kudos.
yeah. uh and then decide that like I want to go more on the art route. um and the UAE doesn't really value things like art and music and stuff like that. They do now, but they didn't back then when I was a teenager. Um,
Hmm.
and the UAE grows really fast, um, and changes really fast. But so yeah, there was no really options for like art school or anything out there. Um, and so there was this one weekend where I was actually supposed to be grounded. I can't remember why. But my mom was really lenient with my best friend Georgie because she was basically like my sister. She almost lived with us sometimes.
Uh-huh.
And so she used to let her come over when I was grounded. And so she came over, and I don't know what the fuck my mom was doing, but we snuck out of the house, and the mall is only like 15 minutes away. And I
Wait, you
knew,
just snuck out?
yeah, well, I knew I had planned this because I knew that there was a boarding school exhibition at the mall. Um, and
What?
all these boarding schools from around the world were going to be, like had their representatives there and stuff. And I can't remember where I got a brochure, or I think I might have seen it online or something. Um, and yeah,
Who
so
sneaks out of the house and goes to a boarding school exhibition?
really smart people.
Anyway,
Snuck out with my
continuing.
best friend Georgie, and we went on our little adventure to the mall to go check out boarding schools and stuff. And I sat with a couple of them, and talked to a few of their representatives, and one school in particular was like really interested in me. Oh, I prepared and brought like a portfolio as well of like my art.
Oh my gosh, she was so
I
prepared.
was on the ball. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna get the fuck out of the UAE. And it was so cute because my best friend Georgie was like by my side, and she was like,
I
I
was
don't
like,
want you.
yeah,
Yeah, she was
I'm
like,
gonna come with you.
I don't want you to leave, but I know you need to get out of here. And I was like, yeah, love that girl.
Oh,
And
do
so
you
we went
still
to,
have contact with her now?
yeah, all the time. Like, we're still best friends to this day. We don't get to see each other very often because she lives in Manchester now. She's British from like Reading, and she and her dad and sister moved to Dubai the same year that I joined that British school. And we
I
just
see.
in like 3 weeks became like best friends and stayed that way forever, even though we both thought each other were bitches in the beginning. But
Anyway, so
anyway,
I'm assuming this school takes you on then.
uh, well, actually, this school in particular, they looked at my portfolio, and I can't remember. I think it was the headmaster who had come, and he said, "Oh, your art looks really good and stuff. We're gonna take some pictures of it and send it to our art faculty people."
Ooh.
And so they did that, and I also got some other brochures from some other schools, and then um, ah, shoot, and then basically I told my parents. I think I might have told you this before. My mom was the one who also started my whole doubt thing in Islam, because she's also always been a huge like seek knowledge, ask questions about everything, that kind of person. And she's also always made me, if I want something bad enough, I have to research it and like basically give my parents a presentation. Um and so I
She's
did
a
that
good
with
mom. I like
yeah,
her.
yeah. She's a good mom.
Look,
And
as someone who like, and I'm not saying this lightly because I work in education, and it's always parents like that who encourage their kids to look into things that I have the best relationship with. So she sounds like a really good mom.
yeah, we were always really close. Yeah. Anyways, so presented the boarding school stuff to my parents, and showed them like my options and my choices. Told
Mhm.
them that I'd spoke to this headmaster of one, and like he wants to possibly give me a scholarship. So of course they were really impressed with that.
Yeah,
Um and yeah, and then my mom and dad were like, "Well, okay, I guess you really want to do this, like over your Easter holiday break and stuff at school, like let's do a trip to the UK and we'll go like tour these schools." Um and so we did that, and I went to that boarding school that wanted to give me a scholarship, and it was like 4 hours outside of London. It was in this fucking like countryside in the middle of nowhere town, and like
sounds
it
about right. Yeah.
it was I don't know what to call it. It was like it was a really posh, like so posh. Like the boys were in shorts, like, and
Yeah.
those little socks. Oh man, and they had like horses and stuff. Like I was like, what is this?
Just
And
to clarify to anyone who thinks the UK is just like this, as a UK resident for almost 20 years, like this is not how I live. This is just
no,
the countryside.
and I'll also clarify, I did not end up going to this school. Actually,
That must have been really different though, because obviously it's a completely different place to Dubai.
yeah, it was very different. But I was also fortunate enough that I'd like been to England before. I was in London when I was 7 once. I think we were there before that too, but I don't remember it. And I was there when I was 7, and then I was there when I was 12. My mom, when I was 12, had her uterine removed because she had uterine cancer, and so we spent like 3 months in London, and it was amazing, and I loved it.
Has she made a full recovery?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
It
good.
was all they just took the whole uterus out and the cancer was gone.
That sounds
But
so easy.
yeah,
It's
it
not
really
though.
does.
It's not
No,
though.
it's not. It's not.
But
But
anyway, go on.
I was 12. She made it look easy. Um,
Of course,
and
she's mum at the end of the
yeah,
day.
yeah, exactly. Superwoman. And fuck. I keep getting lost. Okay, so yeah, went to that boarding school, went to the posh boarding school, and was like, okay, this is interesting. And then the other
Mhm.
boarding school that they didn't have a representative for at the exhibition, but I had just seen it in the brochure, was this school called International School of Creative Arts. And it was actually a A-level school, or like a college set up by the Universities of the Arts London, which I'm sure like you're familiar with.
Yeah, I
Central
work with them
Seymour.
at the moment.
Oh, sweet. Well, they actually set up a college, and I went there, and the
Wait,
reason,
so you went to college? Did you go to college in London?
well, it was actually just outside of Slough. So there you go. I got a much
Ah,
more British, actual, authentic British
if you
experience.
had studied, I know this is like another tangent, but if you had studied in a college in London, like 9 out of 10, I probably had worked there at some point because I run in and out of colleges. Um,
Oh,
but anyway,
well.
um, um, so what? So you then moved to London, I'm assuming, after sort of going for this college shopping journey. Um,
Yeah.
and like were you paid to be in London? Like how did it work?
Wait, what?
Like did you get a scholarship or
Oh, no,
were you
this school I didn't get a scholarship for. Um, I actually based my decision on schools on the lunch, and not necessarily the food at the schools, but just the experience in general. So at the really posh school, it was very posh, and I sat with all the teachers and my parents, and it was really awkward and just horrible. When I went to ISCA, the other school,
yeah.
it was an international school. There was kids from Malaysia and China, and like, well, it was mostly like that first year they only had like 14 students, and they were all Asian. But I felt immediately 100% more comfortable, and within like 4 minutes of sitting down with my lunch with the teachers and my parents, a girl from like the students came over and was like, come sit with us, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go here for
That's
sure.
so nice.
Yeah,
That's so nice.
yeah,
Oh, I wish I'm glad you picked a school based on your social experience. That's a good
yeah.
idea.
Uh-huh, exactly.
Um,
And I was used to being around international students, whereas at that boarding school, it was literally all like other posh, like white kids. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable here.
oh, you would have hated it there.
Yeah,
You would have
exactly.
hated it there because you are half American.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you wouldn't have
Exactly.
survived. Um, but that's really cool. And how long were you in the UK?
I actually ended up being in the UK for just under like 10 years. So I started
So
off with board.
how
Yeah,
so like I'm trying not to make this like a biopic, but
yeah.
I'm just fascinated because you've had such a interesting journey. How did that then affect your relationship with your culture slash religion, having moved to a completely different country, presumably without your parents, or
Yep.
did your parents move as well?
Oh no, they did not.
Okay.
Yep, so it
What
was
was
just
that like?
it was really interesting. We had to have because I was under 18, I had to, we had to pick a UK based like guardian for me and stuff.
Yeah.
Which luckily we have some family friends who are British twins. And they were my guardians, and they've been family friends since like before I was born, before any of my parents' kids were born. Um so they're basically family, and so luckily I had them to be my guardians. um yeah, going, I think it was like it was awesome because I'd always wanted to be independent and away from my family, my home, and away from the UAE.
Hmm.
So I relished that. I just relished being. The other thing was the UAE is, when you live there, it doesn't feel real to me. It never felt real. And being in the UK felt very like this is actually real life. Um I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it does. Like when you live an independent life, it's very, very different from, just sort of doing whatever you want.
yeah.
Because there are significant limitations, but also, all this opportunity.
Yeah, but also great responsibility in like the decisions and choices you make.
Yeah.
Um so there
You need
was
to
all
move
that.
back here, is all I have to say about that.
I miss England so much. I'm not gonna lie. Miss England so much. I
Because
always
your
kind
your
of.
partner your partner's also British, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. And I've always sort of felt at home in the UK. Isn't that funny?
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, so you move here, you're kind of living independently, barring your UK guardians.
And
Um,
I'm living at boarding school as well. So actually it was a nice stepping stone, and that's sort of why my parents were okay with it, because it was a stepping stone between like complete independence and, you know, like being dependent on them.
would you
It,
say you changed after you moved?
yeah, definitely. There's
In
a
in
lot
what
more
way?
in boarding school. I was a lot more confident, I would say.
Mm.
Um and a lot more authoritative and assertive, and there was one teacher in particular who like also sort of helped further progress my ability to like analyze things.
And critical thinking and all of
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
if you did art, then there's
Mhm.
more of a likeliness of that, I think, because
Exactly.
art and literature and stuff, it makes you think a lot of the time outside of the box, even if you don't fully believe what you're thinking,
Yeah.
you find ways of justifying the things that you put
Yeah,
forward.
and justifying the concepts that you want to do.
Yeah, because I,
Yeah.
I think that I had a big realization because I was a literature student. I had a big realization that maybe everything that I think is not completely real because it's just been justified in a way
Mhm.
to me to make it real. What if I could unjustify it and make it, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think a lot of people look down at the arts, but they really do hone those critical thinking
It's
skills.
actually, it's so great that you mentioned literature, because it wasn't actually my art classes that did that. It was my English literature and language class, my A-level class.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
teacher in that class that helped me, realize sort of exactly what you said is like with literature, we analyze like plays and old texts and that kind of classic literature and that kind of stuff, right? But
Mm-hmm.
within analyzing that and all the different analyses you can take from a piece of
Mm-hmm.
text made me really realize that a lot of our religious texts too, like you can essentially analyze it and argue, make a case and argue
Anything.
for exactly, to justify like anything for it.
Yeah.
So
And I think the other thing that we've gotten into like literature discussion. The other thing that it kind of showed me is that even if even if what you are thinking is not what you believe, you can justify it. There is no wrong answer as long
yeah,
as you can justify it.
yeah,
Um, and doesn't that like as a teenager, like as a 17, 18-year-old girl, that really fucked with me. I don't know about
yeah,
you, but it really, really fucked with me that I could justify anything.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It did. I think it really did fuck with me as well.
um, so you're going to this British college, you're learning all of these dangerous critical thinking skills. What happens then?
um. Well, then I realized that. Well, I've always been into conceptual art and installation art. That was always sort of my jam because I was actually in the fine arts before I started doing like web design and stuff. um,
Right.
um, so I'd always been into conceptual art and installation art and spatial art, things like that. Things that
Hmm.
are like 3D and like where you're creating experiences. Um,
Hmm. We need
and
to collab at some point
I know we do. We definitely do.
because I
Gosh.
suck at that. Perspective and stuff, like I suck at that. But when it comes to drawing people and interaction, I'm good at that. So we
Yeah,
need to collab.
your comic panels are incredible. Um,
Thank you.
but uh, so I was really into those, and at the college that I was at, the boarding school, it was we're like finishing off our second year of A
Hmm.
levels and stuff, and so they brought in like a career person from Central St. Martin's or whatever, and had them analyze everyone's portfolios and all this kind of stuff, and they gave me suggestions of what courses I should do for university and where I should go. And obviously, because it's part of the UAL, they were like, we really want you to only go to UAL universities. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
my
yeah. The UK is a bit like that. They're a
yeah
bit clicky when it comes to schools.
hmm yeah
Um,
so that's when I realized they kept telling me to go into advertising and stuff, and I was like, I
oh,
don't know about that.
yeah.
Which is ironic because that's what I ended up doing um, right now. But uh, I really wanted to do game design because I was
Hmm.
also I also after that incident at high school, my mom did something really clever and bought me an Xbox. And
Yeah, she gave you a reason to stay home.
she gave me a reason to stay home.
I'm sorry.
And little did she know.
Hmm. That this would be your calling.
Yeah. Um and yeah, and so I wanted to do games cuz I was like I want to combine my love for conceptual and installation art with creating interactive experiences, and what better medium is there for that than games?
None
Um
other. Like
yeah.
people underestimate the work and the time and effort it takes to put together a game.
Yeah, so did I. Fuck. No, I love it. And and so yeah, I decided that I wasn't going to go to a UAL college. I was going to pick my own course and go do games development. for my bachelor's, and I went and did that.
A
That was
bold choice.
yeah, that was a whole other that was a big next step in like
I mean,
that.
did you do computer science and stuff, or did you
No, I
just
didn't do
jump into
computer
it?
science. I did games development. And I really, really, really wish I did do computer science, and I might eventually probably go back and take a course somewhere for a computer science degree.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would be really awesome to get even further into being able to build things other than just games, but I don't know. We'll see. um, uh, I did my games development course was like it was I found the lecturers great. A lot of people didn't. I don't know, usual uni student complaints of like, oh, they're never here or they don't reply or whatever. Um,
See,
I
I can't relate being in uni
yeah,
at the moment because I'm a distance learner, so all of my lecturers are just they're just somebody that I email from time to time.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think like when you're a little bit older, it's almost easier to do that. Like I really enjoy self-learning now. Um whereas I think when I was, when you're younger and you're like going into class and stuff, like
Hmm.
I think a lot of people expected there to just be a teacher there all the time like it would be in school, but it's not school. It's uni.
No.
Yeah.
Well, for me, the experience is a bit different because I've worked in education longer than I've been in uni.
Oh,
So for me, like the teacher-student dynamic is completely broken because I've watched teachers bullshit their way through lessons for
right.
years at this point.
Right.
So I just didn't want that teacher student relationship. I just wanted to independent study.
Right.
But anyway, it kind of feels like Islam wasn't even really in your life. It was just kind of in the back, like it was the backdrop to
It
stuff that was going
became
on.
it became a backdrop, definitely.
Yeah, and that's actually quite positive.
Yeah.
But did you ever like was there ever a coming out to your family or to your parents, and what
Yeah.
was the reaction like?
Um well, with my dad, I think I was I was still a teenager when I had said this to him, that
Hmm.
I told him I was agnostic. I didn't really actually know what that meant back then. Um and I just thought it sounded slightly better than telling him I was an atheist, because that would be like telling him like, I don't know, I'm a prostitute or something. um,
Wow, the
um,
leap in logic. Do
I
you
just
think you would have found it? Do you think it would have been easier on you if you weren't a girl?
Yes. Oh my god. Me and my sister have watched my brother get away with the like just the shit we would never get away with. Man, this boy had girls in his room like while my parents were in the house. Like he got away with everything, and me and my sister still to this day are like, okay, she's kind of a shithead too, but like, yeah, we were always like, why does he get everything easier? Because he's got like a dick between his legs. That's not fair. Yeah.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. But so you specifically came out to your dad as agnostic. What did you tell your mom?
Um, with my mom, it was later. It was a lot later, and this was actually more recent. Um,
Oh, really? I thought
yeah,
you
in the
had a
last couple
closer
years.
relationship.
We did, but like my relationship with my mom is a little weird. Like we are very close, but it's only
Hmm.
been in the last like 5 to 7 years where um things have really like sort of picked up. See, my brother and sister were always the focal point of like negative drama, and I was always the good kid even with all my issues. Um
Hmm.
and then as I got older and into my like 20s, I started becoming the focal point of that like negative energy from my parents, I guess.
Oh,
Um
mood.
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
And it had something to do. So I think I may have told you about this, like when we've chatted just like one on one. But there was a night where there was like a pretty bad physical altercation with my dad. Although it wasn't really an altercation, I didn't get to do shit, and I really wish I had. But
Uh-huh.
we were in a car on a way back from a Christmas party, and he had been drinking and stuff, but like I literally no reason why, out of nowhere, he was like doing this thing where he pinched me and pinches my arm, and it's like
Yeah.
his weird affectionate thing. But
Yeah.
then I was like, stop it, and like moved my arm, and I was sitting in between my mom and dad in the back seat of a car, and out of nowhere, after telling him to stop it, he just punched me in the face like 4
What?
times. Yeah, and it was really bad, and I like everything. My it felt like my life kind of spun out of control after that. Because I'd
Why
never
did he
had.
do that?
I still don't
Well,
really know.
I guess that's
Um,
why it spun your
but
life out of control, because it's like, why did he do that?
yeah,
It
yeah,
has
I'd
he
always been the
never
good
like
kid.
acknowledged it?
Yes, yes, and I sort of I've come to the conclusion now that like I think it was because of like I'm getting older and more independent in my thoughts, and he didn't
You just
he
never told him to stop before?
for some reason he just like I don't know, didn't
Felt
like it that
disrespected or
particular
something?
night. Yeah. And he like okay, my dad, like, he has I think I had mentioned this to someone yesterday when I was talking about it, but um a couple, or I think it was like a week or two ago, I posted a tweet about um the way Arab men yell. And our
Hmm.
favorite incel Smiles took that and like made that about me being a self-hating Arab, and no, I wasn't just generalizing Arab men for the like shits and giggles. I
No,
have like
I'm sorry. To a certain point, like I know, like you know, I'm from a background. I know what my culture is like. He
yeah,
had no right to say that.
yeah. But
Um,
I'm saying that because I've had confrontational experiences with white men, I've had confrontational experiences with Arab men, and nobody, I'm like pretty tough when it comes to like men. Like I'm not the kind of woman at all that would like date someone that tries to control me or anything like that anymore. Like that would never happen. And
mm,
so I have never been more terrified of anyone other than like my dad or brother, though, to the point where like
that
they have
that's
like
really scary.
yeah, and I made that
'Cause
comment because I remember the like confrontations I've had between like with a white guy and with an Arab man, and I've been yelled at by both, and I can tell you for
mm,
sure one is so much more terrifying than the other. One feels
see,
so much more threatening to me.
I've kind of always been around emotionally effeminate men, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. So for me, it was never like the threat of violence towards me has never really scared me much, which is kind of why when it happens, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like that came out of nowhere. And also I'm not opposed to self-defense. Like that's something that I've kind of always had.
Mm,
Um, but I will say this, that having grown up around, because I went to an Islamic school, having
right.
grown up around a lot of Arab girls and the stories that they would tell me, it was it's kind of sad that the people that you're most afraid of is your father and your brother, because when you think about it stereotypically, at least in a Western sense, those are the people that protect you as a girl, you know?
Yeah.
It's really sad. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've told this to my whole family as well because I'm also the kid that's trying to break the generational curses here.
Mm,
So I've told my dad and my brother, like I've never been afraid of a man like I've been afraid of you two.
Mhm.
There's like, and like you said, like I'm not against self-defense either at all. Like at all. But for some reason, in instances with those two people, like in violent confrontations that I've had with my brother or my dad, um,
Do you kind of like freeze?
yes, I freeze
Yeah.
and like, okay, this is really, really embarrassing, but this is how like traumatic those incidences were. Was that like I'd freeze and there was also occasions where I'd like urinate, like out of fear. Like
Mm.
as a grown, well, not grown adult, but like as a teenager, like I was 17 or 18 in some of those instances, there was like points where they would also do this in front of like my best friend Georgie, who I said basically lived with us. She literally lived through like my family's like dysfunction, and they
Mhm.
would do that in front of her or in front of people. And I always thought that was so just fucking ludicrous, and it would always be because of weird like
It's a power
quote,
trip.
like yeah, quote, I'm like air quoting here, um air quoting disrespect, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that would always come from my dad, and him being like, I'm the father, I'm the head of the house, which of course like we know where that also comes from. um
Mhm.
and yeah, so that like, yeah, the religion thing played into, like you said, it sort of like took a background, but like it's a
Mhm.
it's a
And I think
background that
like
it's a background to a lot of like destruction and dysfunction in my family.
yeah, so the commentary that I was going to give on that actually is that I think when people like us who have left Islam and are kind of vocal about it, I think what people sometimes misunderstand as Islamophobia, because like for example, to bring up Inter Smiles again, he like made this big deal out of the fact that we were talking about animals being slaughtered for Eid, and it's like traditional to make the kids watch the
Right.
animals being slaughtered. And I think a lot of the people who had seen him post about it kind of went, oh well, you know, where does it say in Islam that you have to show your kids that animals being slaughtered or make them slaughter animals? And it's
Mm.
like no one was talking about that. It's the fact that the influence of the religion, like this is such a hallowed thing
Yeah.
that you have to make your kids watch.
Yeah.
It's not something that's mandated, it's just the backdrop of your experience.
Yeah, and
um
I don't understand how people don't see that like just the fact
well
that
some
it's a backdrop creates a lot of these runoff problems, which are still
yeah.
problems, you know?
Well, I think people get defensive about things that they're insecure about mainly. So if someone is really in, like for example, myself, I used to be one of those like forum Muslims who would like sit on forums and watch all of the discussions and sometimes take part in it.
Mhm.
I'd never felt insecure in my belief back then. So I very rarely picked fights with anybody.
Right.
Because I never felt like my faith was being questioned when I was exploring other ideas. But I think what ends up happening with a lot of people online is because we have this sort of explosion of information, is that they know that some things don't line up. Like it's obvious to people who spend all of their time on the internet that some things just don't add up. And I think when you get really, really insecure about it, you look for information that confirms your bias, and then
Right.
you sort of lash out at everyone that contradicts it
Yeah.
because you want to keep the illusion of your faith and defend that constantly.
Yeah.
Um, but it's I don't know. I think it's an incredibly interesting conversation between the criticism of religion and then also Islamophobia or bigotry towards Muslims.
Yeah.
Because that definitely exists. Like there's no
Yeah.
question about that. And
Yeah.
not all Muslims are the same. We
Nope.
just that shouldn't even need saying. But it is the sort of backdrop of your life that is Islam, and then you sort of live through you go through your life not necessarily adhering to everything in it, but it still controls a lot of things that happen around you.
Yeah, and influences a lot of things around you, and influences a
Mhm,
lot of things around you that are really actually like beyond your time frame or control. Like, it's not like my dad picked Islam up when I was born, right? He's
mhm.
been involved and ingrained in it for, 60 plus years.
Generations.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
your family through generations has been ingrained in it, so
Exactly.
it's like an established world that you were
Yeah.
born into.
And you know what? That it also makes me question like the people that criticize like ex-Muslims like us and stuff who say like, oh, you just don't like Islam because you had a traumatic family experience or something. And it's like, well, yeah, like this has been this has been
Yeah,
with our
it was
families for years.
it was the vehicle by which the trauma occurred. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I don't understand why that's also not valid. It should be because it affects so much of our lives. And like I said, with how I came out to my mom about it happened much later, and it was because of my partner. Well, not directly because of him, but I want to get married with him and stuff now.
Mhm,
And I have like really strong values about how I want to start, my family with him. Not we don't
mhm,
want to have children together or anything, but like it is my family, right?
mhm,
Our like household or little subset of family. I have
mhm.
strong values about how I want to start that life. And my mom basically, there was a big we had planned one summer to tell my parents and talk to them and ask them for their blessing and everything, and it's really interesting because my partners actually brought my dad and I closer after that incident. um
Mhm. That's
and
really nice.
yeah, and my part
It takes a real miracle sometimes to do things like that.
yeah, absolutely. Um and my dad and partner get along really well, and my dad beyond all his faults has this really like human side of him, and I try and
Mhm,
remind him a lot of like my American grandpa and grandma, because he sort of became their surrogate son. Like they loved him and he loved them.
yeah.
There was never any of the like any kind of like racism towards my dad being Arab or anything from my white grandparents. It wasn't like that in my
Mhm,
family. Um and so uh I try to remind him of that with my partner, because I know just a couple days ago he messaged my partner and was asking him how things are, and like calls him son and stuff. So he kind of like knows
That's
that.
so sweet.
Yeah, he kind of knows that we are sort of planning this, but me and my partner want to, have the like talk with them and stuff. And I'm
Mhm.
my mom keeps trying to make it about, oh, you need to make your partner talk to your dad, like they need to have a man to man converse, that kind of thing. Like he needs to go to your father.
Like you need your wali and all of that.
Yeah,
Mm.
basically. And I'm like, fucking no, no, like I'm not a child. I can sit and talk to both of you, and I should tell my dad this is what I want, like.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we had this big sort of like fight, because I had told my mom like, oh, we wanted to tell you this and you never gave us time, because for some reason with things to do with my like emotions in love life, she like kind of shuts off, like shuts
Mm.
down. And
Yeah.
she's gotten a lot better at it recently at not doing that, because we've had discussions about it. But um this was a couple years ago, and she basically told me that my dad's religion and culture was in fact more important than my happiness. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're
Jesus.
we're doing that. And that,
She couldn't have meant that though. There's no way she could have meant that.
yeah, that turned into a couple months of us. They were actually flying away the next morning, and she did not say bye to me before they left. That's how like pissy she was with me about that fight.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Um yeah, so this is why I have BPD. My family's dysfunctional. Um and yeah, and then we started having fights about this, and I was like, you're making this Islam and Baba being Muslim shit so much bigger of a deal than even he thinks it is. Like, my dad is not okay, he does pray 5 times a day now. He's gotten older, and it is, it's nearing the like, well, it's not nearing the time. He's still in his 60s.
He's just
But-
gotten more religious as he gets older.
So much more religious as he gets older, which really
natural.
worries me. But he's doing that thing where he's getting older.
Well, I wouldn't be particularly worried, just because it's what I've noticed is when people get older in religion, they don't necessarily focus on proselytizing. They do focus on just trying to fix themselves, which in a sense is good. In another sense, it can be detrimental, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will see what happens. So yeah, he prays it 5 times a day, and this man is so funny. Like, sometimes my dad cracks me up because he will be like, "Oh, I need to go make my wudu and go like do my salah and stuff, and then I can have my glass of whiskey." And I'm like, "You fucking joker! Like, what the fuck you mean?"
Oh, your dad reminds me of my dad. Because like that's the kind of relationship I had with him, where it was extremely dysfunctional, but at the same time, I can't get past the fact that I really, really like my dad.
Right.
Like, I just do. Yeah.
It's tough when they're like funny and lovable and hilarious and human, and then also like just
awful.
Crazy. Yeah.
It is truly the duality of
yeah.
But anyway, so are we like caught up on where you are right now?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty
now
much.
I'm alone in America, which happened because of another incident with my dad. Yeah. He kicked me out. Oh, he kicked me out of the house before I got to the house last summer. When I arrived in the UAE out after being in the UK for a couple months. And I was in the airport at like 2:00 in the morning. And I said one thing complaining about being back in the UAE. One thing. And he said, "Don't come home. Fuck you," and all this kind of shit. And I was like, okay. So I went to a hotel for like 4 days, and then flew to the States and got a job here, and then decided that like, okay, we're gonna ship my partner here and all that kind of stuff, and now I'm stuck here because COVID. Woo. So
I mean, there have been a lot of ups and downs in this story. Like, usually it's either a real uphill or it's a real downhill, and then it's a little uphill.
right.
And this, I feel like your story has a lot of up and downs, which is, I think that reflects the course of most people's lives, where you have a really poor experience.
Listening to this, I laughed, I cried,
You did not cry.
No, I'm just kidding. But I do have a few comments, and there's a couple questions from the chat here.
Cool.
Oh, well, the last question, I know we've been going on for a while, but the last question I had for Farah is, what do you hope for the future? Like, what's the plan?
I really, really, really hope that I can get my partner and my other pets over here, from the UK to the US, and we can live safely and alone in the mountains. That's why I'm fair in the mountains, because I just want to be in the mountains now. And live my life how I want to. Finally.
We're gonna be.
I thought you were gonna move back. I thought you were gonna say I'm gonna move back to the UK. I was getting really excited.
Oh, well, I'll visit.
So you're going to be a mountain woman, huh?
I hope so. I kind of want to be a homesteader, but without the like trad wife part.
That's the dream, though, right? To live in the mountains and have some goats or some shit.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, that's the dream.
Now you had said you want to ship your partner over here. You're not going to literally ship him, are you? Like in a box, like on a.
I don't know. It might be that way with all the COVID travel bans and stuff.
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, the person that we interviewed Saturday, which will broadcast a week from today, she's in a similar situation. She's married, and her and her husband are separated. She's in Canada, and he's in the U.S. because of the COVID shit.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, I just have to say, too, that I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to psychologically recover from Faye's big, huge burst of laughter when you told that girl you were going to kill her. I mean, she laughed just a little too hard and a little too long on that one. But,
No, you know what? It's such a. I don't know if you experienced this, but like girls telling each other they're gonna kill each other is such a meme at this point. Me having gone to a completely girls' school, there was like one death threat thrown at girls like twice every day. Like
it's not just a female thing. I mean, I'm in my mid-50s, and that's what it was when I was in school. I mean, it was just one of the things you say, like, and you don't really mean you're going to kill them. You know, it's like I'm going to kill you. In other words, I'm going to beat your ass. That's what it was when I was a kid.
Oh no. They mean it. Like in the heat of the moment, at that point in time, they mean it. They want to kill you. They just don't know how yet. Like, that's what I found so funny about it. I don't know. Maybe I see the humor in it more so because like I work in schools and I come across kids who are like that, and it's just funny because they're stupid and they say things like that. So that's why I was laughing as hard. And it is especially just common, unfortunately, in like I want to say more cultured sort of environments where there's like loads of different cultures. Because killing is not the weirdest thing in the world to some cultures. It just isn't. So,
you know, I was AFK there for a minute, and I heard the phrase "stupid British girl," and I was afraid that you and Faye were fighting. I ran back to the computer. But totally joking. And then the last thing I want to say, we'll get to a couple questions here, is that, you know, when I knew you were a gangster, Farah? When you said that you skipped school and went to a boarding school exhibition.
Oh, such a gangster.
Yeah. Gangster move.
Do you see, like, John, do you see why I wanted to bring Farah on? Like, she's a hoot.
Oh, yeah, it was awesome. And I got to say, I think I'm going to, if you're not around, Faye, I might reach out to Farah to come and co-host.
That would be great. That would be great. She'd do an amazing job.
You think?
Oh,
yeah.
You're a natural.
You know how, like, you're so, you know, you said that at the beginning of this, you were nervous.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't detect any of it, like, at all. You're so eloquent, and you explain things in such graphic detail. Like, you set the scene for this.
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't think I did that at all, but thanks.
No problem.
All right, I gotta fulfill a request from the chat.
All right.
What's that?
Hello, I'm Mr. Ed. That's old person joke. Never mind. They wanted me to. You two are probably way too young to know who Mr. Ed is, but it was a comedy show from the '60s where a guy had a best friend that was a talking horse.
I'm unfamiliar.
Get to the questions here. Ronan Kanushi asked very early on to Farah, did you naturally engage with the South African friend before or after you knew that type of relationship was taboo?
Oh, I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I kind of knew it was taboo and wrong, but I also kind of was just like, oh, this feels nice and normal in my head, you know?
Right.
But I was also like 12 or 13, so like that's a lot of
Like, you know, it was
that's a
taboo
lot of
before you did it.
what?
I don't think she was talking to us, maybe.
Oh, sorry. Um, yeah, so I think it was kind of a bit of both. It felt really like natural to just do that with her though. And it felt more unnatural to try and feel like that towards men or guys or boys or whatever. Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah. But I mean, it felt unnatural to try and like a boy inside me than it did to like a girl. But I also kind of was aware that there was like a social taboo around like liking girls.
So do you identify as bi?
I used to identify as pansexual, but there's a lot of like identity politics stuff with that. So yeah, I'm bisexual. Like, yeah.
Now, this other question is from Speed of Sound of Gravity. And he wants to know, how does Islam end up leaning toward violence against women, or does it? What is the source, culture or dogma?
I think
It's a good question.
It is a good question. I'm probably not like, I mean, I'm only qualified to answer it from a really, really personal experience standpoint. Like, so that's it. But I think it's a bit of all three of the things, like Islam, culture, and dogma. I think the Islam in general has a really patriarchal nature, and so therefore it values the man above all else. And then that rolls down into the culture of Islamic cultures in Islamic cultures and countries, and that can manifest itself in different ways, but ultimately, like, it still has this notion of like the man is on top of everything else. And when you have that within a culture and a society, like, some of those men are going to execute their power over women.
Any thoughts, Faye, on this?
I mean, I've already commented on this several times. It's just the domination or the allowance for the domination of men in Islam probably sort of invites that kind of negativity towards women. And then the violence also is, to an extent, advised if your wife is, well, if you fear your wife is becoming disobedient, then you can essentially just train her through periodic beating. You know, there's also different passages in the Hadith and stuff that allows you to beat your children if they're not as religious as they should be. It's a combination of a male-dominated society or autocracy or whatever, as well as this invitation to violence. And that's sort of what creates that culture, because it's not just a problem in the Arab world. This is a problem across the board in a lot of Muslim countries where there's a lot of violence towards women and children. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I would just, wholeheartedly agree with both of what they said. I mean, I didn't know about any of this stuff until I met Faye and got introduced to people that she knows. It's unfortunate, like someone mentioned in the chat, earlier, yeah, let somebody put their hands on any women in my family. And I mean, that's the way I was raised too. But it seems like it's the norm in Islamic society. So for the next 3 weeks now, like I mentioned earlier, a week from today, we will be putting up an interview with Sassy Heathen that we recorded on Saturday, and because of scheduling incongruities and differences in time zone, the next two shows after that this month in December will also be recorded and put as premieres on Monday at 1:00. So that'll be the 7th, the 14th, and the 21st will be all recorded interviews. And then on the 28th, and I didn't even tell Knock about this yet, but hopefully he's listening, or I'll let him know later. The 28th, it'll be me and Faye and Nakasuchi, and we will finally be showing and talking about the Lost episode number 13.
Are we doing it live or are we pre-recording it?
We'll do it live,
Let's do it live.
Yeah, and then fuck it, let's do it live. We'll, and then Knock will be able to play the audio that Haas sent us, and then we can be able to comment on the snafus that we had trying to record it. Because if you go back and you look at the playlist, you'll notice that episode 13 is missing, and that's not because we're superstitious or anything like that. Although the day we tried to record episode 13, we were starting to think, man, is that a real thing now, this 13 shit? Because stuff was just going so wrong. But I want to thank Farah for being here. You were delightful. I wholeheartedly agree with Faye. If you were nervous, I didn't notice it. So,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having me. And thanks, Faye, for thinking of me. It was so nice to get to chat to you for a while.
Yeah, you know what? What I've noticed about this show and why I enjoy doing it so much with people that I know is because I feel like I know you a little bit better now. Whereas, I would have never known this stuff unless you had brought it forward out of the blue without me having brought up any questions, because it's just not relevant to anything that we do talk about.
Yeah.
So it's just good to know you a bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Well, and not to desecrate that moment you just had, but this episode led me to feel like I know Faye a little bit better now, and I know not to ever piss her off. I mean, because
you should have known that from before you got me on the show, to be honest.
And on that note, hey, this is our new day and time, 1:00. U.S. Eastern time. Seems to be going good. Please do us a favor and share this channel, share this show with somebody on social media. We'd like to get more eyes on it. As you know, the Apostate Alliance is where you can be free to not believe.